like, Map, come on, get in the car. I'm like, what the I'm not making a connection here. And I'm like, oh, that's Puff car. There ain't no way I'm getting in that fucking car. I look at Pac, and Pac got a whole different face. His face looked like that picture before he died, that face he had.
Oh, this one.
That look. He had that look on his face. You know what I mean?
So do you think Puffy was involved in the shooting?
I believe so. I do believe so. I have proved things that I could say that will back up my claim, but this is not for the world to know about. You know what I mean? It's between me and him, and only he knows. So every time he say it didn't happen, or that's the only thing that makes this become an issue to everybody. If you're gonna act like you a gangster or a G or the king of New York, I'm gonna expect that. And when you don't come through, then I'm gonna want to crush your empire. And that's what it's time for.
What if I told you that Tupac tried to warn Method Man about Diddy before his tragic death? Did Tupac see something in the music industry that we're just starting to realize? Was Diddy more than just a rival to Pac? Keep watching to uncover what really went down behind the scenes.
But Puffy, P. Diddy, and you around a bunch of other motherfuckers. Showtime, baby. And
Tupac and Method Man might seem like an unlikely duo at first glance, especially given the heated East Coast-West Coast rivalry at the time. But despite the media-driven drama, Tupac always made it clear that he had a deep respect for Method Man. The two artists shared a genuine connection, not just through their music, but through their mutual understanding of the industry's politics. In 1996, they collaborated on the track Got My Mind Made Up, a classic that brought their styles together in a powerful way. What's interesting is that this collaboration wasn't just about music. It symbolized the trust Pac had in Meth. While Pac was at odds with figures like Diddy and the Bad Boy camp, he continued to work with East Coast rappers he respected, Method Man being one of them. Pac's respect for Method Man went beyond their shared love for music. It was about integrity. During a time when loyalty was often torn between business and personal beliefs, Meth managed to stay true to himself, refusing to get swept up in the fake industry loyalty that defined much of the East Coast-West Coast beef. Pac knew Meth wasn't about playing both sides. He wasn't concerned with what the media had to say or who was popular. He just wanted to make music and stay grounded in his values. This is why, in their last conversations, Pac felt comfortable enough to warn Method Man about some of the darker forces lurking behind the scenes, particularly one very powerful name, Diddy.
We on our way out. Lights come on at the end of the party. Party over. Lights come on. I'm blowed now. I'm like, shh. Feel a tap on my shoulder. Turn around. It's Pac. I ain't seen all night. I ain't know he was even in there. I turn around, Pac there, he's like, yo, wanna holler at you, anybody? Next thing I know, cameras and. So while he's saying this, I remember an altercation happened with RZA in Vegas, something happened with the chain, and Pac was trying to tell me, if I was there, that would never happen, blah, 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 blah. And I remember looking up, and Suge was like this with the cigar in his mouth, looking down at me like this. So I'm like, damn, I'm just on a plane with this. He looking at me crazy right now, So then I look at Pac, and Pac got a whole different face. His face looked like that picture before he died. That face he had.
Oh, this one.
That look. He had that look on his face. You know what I mean? And I remember looking back down, and I couldn't understand anything he was saying after that because mad was going through my head, and I'm looking at the death row piece on his chain. Then he was like, "Yeah, we gonna all meet up," and I was like, "Yeah, you know how men do it. We're handling our business." Walked out. Soon as I walked out the club, Tracy Waples. Love Trey Wap.
Executive label executive. Yeah. Worked behind the scenes for a long time.
She outside in a Benz like, Map, come on.
It was during one of their last conversations that Tupac allegedly dropped a chilling warning to Method Man, one that would take years for Meth to fully understand. Pac, known for his straightforwardness, didn't sugarcoat anything, especially when it came to the people he thought were manipulating the industry. According to Meth, Pac had a feeling something wasn't right, and he wanted to make sure his friend was aware. The warning wasn't just about the usual industry beefs or the rap battles that dominated the headlines at the time. It was deeper than that. Pac apparently told Method Man to watch out for certain people, and though he didn't name names right away, Diddy's name eventually came up. At the time, it seemed like a casual piece of advice, but Meth admitted that both he and Pac were paranoid due to everything happening around them. In the conversation, Pac mentioned how he had always felt like Diddy wasn't what he appeared to be. He spoke of the dangers lurking within the industry, where things were controlled behind the scenes and where loyalties weren't what they seemed. It was this sense of betrayal that Pac couldn't shake, and he wanted to make sure that Meth, someone he trusted, wouldn't get caught up in the same web. Looking back, it's clear that Tupac wasn't just talking about the music business. He was talking about something much darker, an industry system that protected certain figures while leaving others to fight for survival. And as it turns out, one of those figures was Diddy.
Soon as I walked out the club, Tracy Waples. Love Trey Wap.
Executive label executive,
yeah.
Worked behind the scenes for a long time.
She outside in a Benz like, Meth, come on, get in the car. I'm like, what the I'm not making a connection here. And I'm like, oh, that's Puff car. That's Puffy car. Ain't no way I'm getting it. No.
It was a seemingly ordinary night at a party in Los Angeles, but it quickly turned into a pivotal moment that would haunt Method Man for years. At the time, he didn't realize it, but that evening would become one of the key moments where everything started to fall into place. Method Man recalls being at the party, surrounded by industry people, and then suddenly feeling a tap on his shoulder. When he turned around, he was face to face with none other than Tupac. What happened next would always stick with him. Pac, who had been on edge ever since the tensions between East and West Coast had escalated, pulled Meth aside. In their conversation, Tupac brought up something that most people would have brushed off as a minor issue: the infamous chain-snatching incident involving RZA at Club 662. Pac told Meth that if he had been there, things would have played out differently. It was a direct reflection of Pac's protective nature. He was always looking out for his own. And in that moment, he was looking out for Method Man. But here's where things got strange. After their conversation, Meth was approached by someone from Diddy's camp. They told him to hop into a car, but something didn't feel right. Meth didn't trust the vibe and turned it down. The situation felt off, and looking back, he couldn't help but wonder if Pac had warned him about this very moment. Was Diddy trying to pull him into something? Maybe it was just coincidence, but in light of everything that came out later, it felt like more than that.
Because they disrespected me, my name, my family, what I had been through. They said that I couldn't be in pain. I could not feel, I could not be hurt. In my moment of pain, when I was shot 5 times in jail for a crime I didn't commit, while every other black person, whoever they was in the ass or them in 50 pieces, I support. I go to jail for a crime everybody know I did not commit 5 times, and I'm getting jail, wompty, they just saying anything to assassinate my character. What that showed me, remember this lack of a conscience when I come out. Remember this lack of mercy when I come out. Remember this lack of compassion when I come out. And I will do anything to protect and feed my family. And these represent a threat.
But that's not all. Another old interview recently resurfaced where Suge Knight kind of hinted at something similar and said that Tupac was worried that some industry men who were on the DL might harm little ones.
If it was a rapper that messed with guys and go both ways, Pac didn't feel that was good. Because Pac felt he was real serious about the music. So if you're a producer or you rap, and regardless if you're married or not, and you got a boyfriend that works for you, a real boyfriend who used to be a dancer, Pac studied all the facts. Pac was real smart. So before he say something, he'd go and do his homework. He'd say, okay, this guy right here, they say he gay, he go both ways. I'm not gonna put it out there on him yet, but I'm gonna do my research, and if it's true, the world should know. Because this guy might be around one of those little kids one day and mess around with them, and so I'm gonna do it to actually save him from molesting a little child. That's why Pac attacked certain rappers and said they gay.
During the height of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, Method Man managed to do something that few artists could. He stayed neutral. While the media and the industry tried to force everyone to pick a side, Meth refused to get dragged into the drama. He wasn't about choosing between Biggie or Pac, or being caught in the middle of a battle that wasn't his own. Instead, he focused on his music, maintaining respect for both coasts. This neutrality wasn't out of indifference. It was a conscious choice. Meth understood that the real goal was to stay true to himself and his fans, not get caught up in the politics that so often defined the industry. He worked with Biggie early in his career, and even though he had respect for Pac, he didn't allow the beef to dictate who he collaborated with. Method Man wasn't playing the game the way many others were. He didn't want to be part of the fake industry loyalty that was tearing the culture apart. It was this integrity that made Tupac trust him. Pac knew that Meth wasn't pretending to be someone he wasn't. He didn't have to worry about Method Man playing both sides for the sake of fame or money. They connected over a shared understanding of staying authentic. And because of this, Pac felt comfortable enough to warn him about the dangers lurking in the industry. Dangers that would soon come to light in a much darker way. Tupac's warning to Method Man wasn't just about navigating the surface-level rap beef. It was about something much more sinister lurking beneath the surface. Pac had already begun to see that Diddy and others in the industry weren't simply caught in a rivalry. They were part of a larger system, one that controlled everything from artist relationships to the very direction of the music industry itself. Pac wasn't just fighting for respect in the rap game, he was beginning to understand that there were much darker forces at play, manipulating the culture behind closed doors. It wasn't just about record sales or chart positions, it was about controlling the narrative, the people, and the money. And at the center of it all, he believed, was Diddy. Tupac didn't think Diddy was just trying to win a rap beef. He suspected that Diddy was involved in a network of powerful individuals who were pulling strings, making shady deals, and protecting their own interests at the expense of others. This wasn't something that could be proven in a court of law, but the pieces started to fall into place for Pac. He saw the way the industry protected certain figures, while others, like him, were thrown to the wolves. Pac's growing paranoia wasn't just a byproduct of the East Coast-West Coast beef. It was a realization that he was up against a system that was much bigger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. And the more Pac tried to expose it, the more the walls closed in on him. Tupac's mistrust of the industry went far beyond the typical rap beefs and media wars. It was rooted in something much more serious. His infamous 1996 Vibe magazine interview revealed just how deeply Pac believed that the entertainment industry was hiding dark secrets. In that interview, Pac openly accused some of the biggest names in the industry of engaging in the worst kinds of crimes so heinous that they would make most people shudder. Yet, these figures were being protected, shielded by the system, while Pac was dragged through the mud for something he always claimed was a false accusation. While Pac didn't name names in that interview, it was clear to anyone paying attention that he was calling out the powers that be, specifically those connected to Bad Boy. What he was implying wasn't just about his legal battles or rap rivalries, it was about a hidden network of elites within the industry, people who were seemingly untouchable no matter what they did. Tupac wasn't just fighting for his reputation or his career, he was fighting for the truth. Pac's comments were a direct challenge to the power structure that controlled the music industry. He believed that these figures weren't just manipulating artists for profit, they were using their power to silence those who tried to speak out or expose the corruption. Tupac knew he was risking everything by pointing this out, but he couldn't stay quiet. And that, perhaps, was the reason why he was such a threat to the system. Tupac's suspicions about the music industry were not just wild accusations. He had a well-grounded belief that something much darker was at play. As early as 1996, he was already questioning the integrity of major figures like Diddy, and his feelings toward him went far beyond the surface-level rivalry. Pac wasn't just upset about the East Coast-West Coast beef. He believed that Diddy was part of a system that was exploiting and manipulating the very artists it was supposed to uplift. Pac saw through the glossy image that Diddy presented to the world, the charming mogul, the smooth-talking businessman who seemed to be all about success and power. But Pac felt there was something fake behind that image. He suspected that Diddy wasn't just playing the game, he was helping rig it. Whether it was through shady contracts, behind-the-scenes deals, or exclusive parties, Pac believed Diddy was using his power to control the industry and silence those who didn't fit the mold. What made Pac's views even more disturbing was his belief that Diddy wasn't just playing the industry's dirty game, he was part of a much larger network of protected elites. These were figures in power who could do whatever they wanted, without fear of reprisal, while the rest of the artists were left to fend for themselves. Tupac wasn't afraid to call out this system, and he paid the price for it. He was a threat to the empire that Diddy and others were building, and that made him dangerous in their eyes. The more Tupac spoke out, the more it seemed like he was digging into a system that was determined to keep him silent. One of the most chilling aspects of Pac's story is the FBI's involvement in his life. Tupac was under surveillance for years, with over 4,000 pages of FBI documentation on him. Though to this day, only a fraction of those pages have been released, and even those are heavily redacted. Pac was seen as a threat to the status quo, someone who wasn't afraid to challenge the power structures that controlled the country's music industry. Meanwhile, figures like Diddy seemed to be operating with complete immunity. While Tupac was being followed and investigated by government agencies, Diddy was building an empire and moving through the industry largely untouched. It's hard to ignore the stark contrast. Pac, constantly surveilled and scrutinized for his activism and his outspoken nature, and Diddy, seemingly shielded by the very same system that was tracking Pac's every move. This discrepancy raised even more questions. Why was Pac being watched so closely while Diddy seemed untouchable? Was there a deeper connection between Diddy's actions and the institutions that were monitoring Pac? The FBI's interest in Tupac suggests that he was seen as a dangerous figure, one who could potentially expose the very things he was warning people about. On the other hand, Diddy's protection raised suspicions that perhaps he was part of a larger, more powerful network, one that didn't just control the industry, but the very people behind it. As we look back at everything that's come to light, it's impossible to ignore the chilling possibility that Tupac knew more than we ever realized. Was he really trying to warn not just Method Man, but the entire industry about the forces pulling the strings behind the scenes? Diddy's involvement in a system that protected powerful elites while silencing those who dared to speak out. Was that the dark reality Pac was seeing? We've all heard the rumors, the speculations, and the conspiracy theories. But when you connect the dots, Tupac's warnings, his suspicions about Diddy, the FBI surveillance, it paints a picture that goes far beyond a rap beef. Tupac wasn't just trying to survive in the music industry. He was fighting to expose a network of corruption that was far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. So, what if Tupac was right all along? What if the very system that protected Diddy also played a role in silencing one of the most outspoken voices of his generation? And what if the truth is still being hidden to this day? We may never know all the answers, but one thing is for certain: Tupac wasn't just another rapper. He was a man who saw the darkness behind the curtains and tried to tear them down, even when it meant putting his life on the line. What do you think? Was Pac's warning a glimpse into something much bigger, something the industry didn't want us to know? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and as always, I'll catch you in the next video.